She was just sorting crates while soldiers whispered behind her back. "Washed up vet," they said, smirking. Then a general walked in, glanced at her uniform, and froze mid-step. One patch. One symbol. Suddenly, everything changed. Glow showing Europe Africa. Before we continue, from which city in the world are you watching this? Speech balloon, and if you value untold stories of quiet strength, consider subscribing. Morning sun streamed through dusty depot windows, casting long golden shafts across stacked crates, clipboards, and metal tools. The air was thick, with grease, cardboard, and the stale bitterness of burned coffee. Boots thudded across the concrete floor. Orders were barked. Forklifts beeped. At the center of it all moved Marie Renner. Silver-gray hair tied in a tight regulation bun. Faded uniform, spotless. Retired sergeant major, now working a quiet logistics contract. She walked with deliberate grace, clipboard in hand. Steady, precise, ignored. To most, she was background noise. Like a shelf. Or a wrench. Always there. Necessary but overlooked. "Hey, Grandma. Try not to pull a muscle." One young private jeered. His friend laughed, but not fully, glancing back at Marie, almost uneasy. She said nothing, just adjusted her path and walked on. The boots of youth were loud, but hers were silent, like memory. Two soldiers leaned near the rations crate. "She's been here forever," one muttered. "Didn't even make it past logistics. Gotta be like 70. She's contract now. Probably got demoted." Both laughed, dismissing her with the ease of ignorance. Marie didn't flinch. She continued scanning manifests, filing corrected codes, double-checking cargo. Then, from an inner pocket, she pulled a worn black and white photo. A tactical team. Blurred faces. Worn uniforms. Only one clear, her own. Helmet off. Eyes sharp. A faded patch barely visible near her heart. A symbol no one noticed or understood. She placed the photo back, gently brushing the insignia stitched into her chest. 0857 hours. A red letter notice on the board. Inspection. General Darnell. The depot buzzed into frantic motion. Soldiers scrambling. Cleaning. Yelling over boxes and supplies. One rushed past and bumped her shoulder. "Sorry, ma'am," he muttered, not even stopping. She steadied the box before it could fall. Another flustered private, Hernandez, ran up. "Ma'am, do you know where the sealant compound is?" "Crate B41 isn't logged." "Left shelf," she said calmly. "Behind the water purification cartridges." He stared. "How'd you?" "I packed it."
"Right.
"Thanks." He ran off. Marie turned back to her clipboard and allowed herself a barely there smile. 0900 hours. The doors opened. General Darnell entered.
Tall. Composed.
Ribbons on his chest like polished armor. His aides, captains, and a young public affairs officer followed, tablets in hand. "All personnel, at attention," a voice barked. Everyone snapped to formation, except Marie. She stayed at her post, flipping through paperwork. "Miss Renner," a young corporal whispered nervously. "You're supposed to." "Civilians don't stand at attention," she replied, eyes never lifting. The inspection began. Darnell walked past rows of gear, asking sharp questions, glancing at forms, making quiet notes. Marie crouched near a crate, her knee cracking softly. A private rolled his eyes. Can she even get up without help? Laughter muffled. She ignored it all, pulled a fresh label from the drawer, wrote a corrected code in careful script. Near the inspection group, a young lieutenant leaned toward the general. "That one Marie Renner, been here for years. Bit of a legend, maybe. Probably embellished with time." General Darnell said nothing, until something caught his eye. Marie was reviewing a bin for hazardous compliance. The sunlight hit her uniform just right.
He saw it. A patch.
One not listed in any current unit registry. A symbol from whispers. From shadows. His steps halted mid-stride. The room didn't notice yet. He stepped forward slowly. "Excuse me," he said. Marie turned.
"Come."
He pointed with his clipboard. "That patch. Left chest. Where did you get it?" She looked down, touched it gently, like an old scar. Task Force Midas. Operation Grip Hawk. The room fell completely silent. To most, those words meant nothing. But to Darnell, they hit like a detonation.
His face changed.
"You were on Midas?" he whispered. Marie nodded once. "I was in the 212th support during the Ghazni breach," he said slowly. "Your team covered our withdrawal." "I remember," she said softly. "Most of my squad didn't make it." He straightened. Eyes locked on her. "You're Sergeant Major Renner?" "I was." His jaw clenched. His posture snapped into perfect form. Then, he saluted. "Sergeant Major," he said, voice full of reverence. "It's an honor." The room froze. The air shifted. Everyone saw it now. The general, the base commander, was saluting the woman they'd mocked all morning. The woman they ignored. The woman they didn't know how to see, but who had seen more than any of them ever would. She was sorting crates while young soldiers whispered behind her back, calling her a washed-up vet. Then a general walked in, glanced at her uniform, and froze mid-step. One patch, one symbol, and everything changed. The morning sun streamed through the dusty windows of the military supply depot, casting long shafts of light across crates, chains, and paperwork. The air was thick with the scent of motor oil and burnt coffee. Soldiers moved with practiced chaos, boots pounding, orders shouted, boxes slammed. And in the middle of it all, Marie Renner worked in silence. Her gray hair was pulled back in a tight regulation bun. Her uniform, faded but flawless, carried the markings of a retired sergeant major. Now reemployed in a civilian logistics role, she moved with quiet precision, checking serials, logging manifests, adjusting supply discrepancies with the patience of someone who'd done it all before, probably more than once. To the younger soldiers, she was invisible, not because she lacked presence, because she blended in, like a shelf or a forklift, necessary but overlooked. "Hey, Grandma, don't throw out your hip," one private jeered. His buddy laughed but hesitated. Something about the joke didn't feel right. Still, they returned to their crates, assuming she hadn't heard. She had. She just didn't waste breath correcting the ignorant. Another soldier leaned over to a corporal. "She's been here longer than some gear. Probably flunked out of a command. Civvy now. Like, what, 70? Marie walked by without comment, submitting a corrected requisition into the tray and glancing at the schedule board. In red, base inspection, General Darnell. She looked at her watch. 35 minutes. A corporal from engineering flagged her down. Sergeant, I mean Miss Renner, this says we're only getting 2 spools of thermal cable. We ordered 4. She examined the paper. 1 digit off. You typed 74,651 instead of 74,615. That changes the cable gauge. He blinked. "I'm sure You did," she said calmly. Line 27. He opened his mouth, then nodded and walked off. No argument. From her vest, she pulled a small black and white photograph, an old tactical team. Worn gear. Serious faces. One face clear, hers. Tucked into the corner of the photo was a patch, barely visible. A winged dagger wrapped in a serpent. The kind of insignia not found in standard manuals. She brushed her fingers over the matching patch sewn into her uniform.
Old. Frayed.
Faded into the fabric of her chest like it belonged to another life. Outside, jeeps rolled into the perimeter. Soldiers straightened up. Cleanup began. A sergeant barked orders. Crates were shifted, floors swept, and toolkits hidden. "Clear the dock. Let's make it look like someone's in charge here." Marie stepped out of the way as a young soldier rushed past, bumping her shoulder. "Sorry, ma'am," he muttered, not stopping. She caught the box he nearly dropped and steadied it before continuing her own checklist. "Ma'am, do you know where the sealant compound is?" a flustered private asked. "Crate B41 isn't logged." She didn't look up. Left shelf. Behind the water purifiers. He blinked. "You packed it." She offered the faintest nod. "I packed everything." At exactly 0900, General Darnell entered. The depot snapped to attention, every soldier standing stiff and straight. Everyone but Marie. She kept flipping through her manifest sheets. "Miss Renner," a corporal whispered beside her. "You're supposed to stand down tools." "I'm a civilian," she said, not even glancing up. "I don't salute inspections." The general made his rounds. Sharp, controlled, observant. Aides flanked him, one typing notes into a tablet. A young lieutenant tried to impress with observations. "Sir, most of the personnel are sharp, though some of our legacy hires are slower." "That one," he said, nodding discreetly at Marie. "Good record, apparently. Paperwork mostly. Rumors, legends. You know." Marie crouched to adjust a mislabeled crate. Her knees cracked faintly. A private snorted. "She gonna get back up without a crane?" A few quiet chuckles. Marie ignored them. She simply corrected the label and moved on. Then something shifted. General Darnell's eyes landed on Marie.
He stopped.
She stood near a bin, sunlight catching the front of her uniform. That's when he saw it, the patch. He took 2 slow steps forward. "Excuse me," he said. Marie turned, clipboard still in hand.
He gestured to her chest.
"Where did you get that patch?" She glanced down, brushed it gently with her fingers. "Task Force Midas. Operation Grip Hawk." The room stilled. Most didn't recognize the names, but the general did. "You were on Midas?" he asked, barely above a whisper. She nodded once. His breath caught. "I was 212th support during the Ghazni breach. Your unit covered our withdrawal. I thought you were all lost." "Most were," she said quietly. "Some of us weren't." He stood straighter, a muscle twitching in his jaw. Then his arm lifted. In front of everyone, he snapped a crisp salute. "Sergeant Major," he said. "It's an honor." The room didn't move. Couldn't. The mocking fell silent. Every soldier, every officer, every whisper froze. They had spent the morning ignoring her, laughing at her, dismissing her. Now their general was saluting her. She returned the gesture slowly, calmly. One aide leaned in to the general. "Sir, is she?" "She is." "But why logistics?" The general turned to her. Marie shrugged. "Because bullets don't load themselves. Logistics isn't glamorous. But without it, nothing moves. Nothing works." A private stepped forward. "Ma'am, I didn't know. I'm sorry." She looked him in the eye. "Now you do." Another young soldier hesitated. "Is it true? You ran solo operations?" Marie didn't answer, just looked at the frayed patch again. "That patch," someone murmured. "I thought it was a ghost story." General Darnell smiled faintly. "So did I." She shook her head.
"No, sir."
The mission was the recognition. "That's all I ever wanted." The general nodded once more, deeply. As the inspection ended and the group exited, one corporal jogged after her. "Ma'am, if you have time, could you teach me how you caught that cable order mistake?" She raised an eyebrow. "Sure." Then quietly they walked off. No fanfare, no medals, just a woman with a clipboard, and a patch no one will ever overlook again. With an even expression, then gestured toward the paperwork. Line 27. Most people skip the middle digits, but that's where they encode the usage tier. If you know what the number should be, you can see the mistake. The private nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "Would you mind teaching me more of that? I mean, when you have time?" "I always have time for someone who wants to learn," she replied. A few other soldiers nearby drifted closer, pretending to rearrange bins or review lists, but their ears were clearly on her. Later that day, after the inspection ended and the noise began to settle, Marie sat alone on a crate near the back wall of the depot. She pulled the photograph from her vest again. Older now, worn at the edges, but still intact. She stared at it for a long while. Nearby, one of the aides from the inspection team had forgotten a clipboard. She picked it up and placed it carefully on the command desk. As she turned back, she heard footsteps behind her. It was the young private, the same one who had called her grandma earlier that morning.
His posture had changed.
No swagger now, just hesitation. "Ma'am." I just wanted to say again.
I'm sorry.
I didn't mean any disrespect. Marie studied him for a moment. You didn't know better, she said. That's why we train. He nodded, unsure. I hope I get the chance to earn that kind of patch one day. She gave him a faint smile, her eyes heavy with things unspoken. Just remember, it's not about the patch. It's about what you carry when no one else is watching and who you carry it for.
He didn't respond.
He just nodded, then walked away. That evening, as the depot emptied, Marie remained. As always, she swept the floors, reorganized stray tools, signed off on the last shipment logs, and powered down the terminals. Before locking the door, she paused. Her hand rested on the frame as she looked back at the space. Same walls, same crates, but something had shifted. Not physically, something quieter. Respect had filled the air where indifference once lived. Outside, the sky was slipping into dusk. Shadows lengthened across the concrete as Marie made her way toward the residential wing. A group of soldiers crossed her path, and this time, they moved aside, offering respectful nods as she passed. She returned each one with the same quiet, composed glance. But instead of going straight to her quarters, she took a detour toward the memorial wall by the west gate. It was a solemn stretch of polished granite, each plaque etched with names and call signs. She didn't read them, she didn't have to. Her gaze landed on a small empty spot beside a plaque. She stood there a long time, arms lightly crossed, the breeze brushing a few loose strands from her bun. She didn't cry.
She didn't speak.
And then, just as quietly, she turned and walked away. Her silhouette slowly disappeared into the falling light. She had never asked to be remembered. But now, she had been seen. And for her, that was enough. The next morning, something was different. It wasn't visible. Not exactly. But the air on base carried a quiet stillness, like a held breath. Reverence unspoken. What had happened in the logistics depot the day before wasn't passed around like gossip. It moved through the ranks as something deeper. A story told in lowered voices and quiet acknowledgments. At the far end of the compound, Marie entered the depot as she always did, early, with a thermos of black coffee and a folded manifest under her arm. The doors groaned open like usual. Her boots clicked across the concrete like they always had. But this time heads turned. Junior soldiers paused mid-task. They nodded as she passed. And for the first time, they weren't just seeing a figure in faded fatigues. They were seeing her. A young soldier approached, not with a joke or a question, but with a form. Ma'am, I filled out the requisition slips for the hydraulic filters. Thought you might want to double-check before submission. She reviewed the sheet. Handed it back. You did fine. Send it through. He hesitated. Actually, would you mind explaining something? The form asked for tier classification. I wasn't sure how to determine it. She unfolded a stool and motioned for him to sit. Usage tier is based on equipment cycle rate and failure probability. Start with the mission type. Domestic or overseas? Scheduled overseas, he said. She nodded. Then it's tier 3. You don't want filters failing in sand. Always build in a margin. He scribbled notes like it was doctrine. When he walked away, 3 others stepped forward, each holding forms and quiet questions. She taught them one by one. Not with lectures, but with the same deliberate precision she always had. Only now they listened. By midday, the depot was alive with a different kind of energy. Soldiers worked harder, asked more, cared more. Word had reached command. A team from base ops arrived with a facilities manager in tow. We're looking to install a small recognition plaque, the manager told her. Something simple, to acknowledge your service. Marie eyed the wall. The same stretch she'd walked past for years. As long as it's for the team, she said. Task Force Midas wasn't one person. Understood, the manager replied. We'll coordinate with the memorial committee. If you have photos or documents, we can review them together. She nodded and went back to her work. Later that day, General Darnell returned. This time, no entourage. Just him. He approached Marie's desk. I thought inspections were over, she said. They are, he replied. May I sit? She motioned to the crate stool. I contacted Central Archives, he said. I submitted a request to declassify part of Midas history. Just enough to preserve it properly. Marie's brow creased. You know what we signed.
I do, he said.
I'm not trying to glorify it, but the record should have names. People like you held the line so the rest of us could move forward. That should mean something. She thought it over. If the families are protected and the details stay sealed, I won't oppose it. They will be, he promised. They sat quietly, watching soldiers move across the depot. No tension now, only shared understanding. Before leaving, Darnell turned again. Would you consider speaking to the Academy's logistics class next month? They think war is all frontline fire. Maybe it's time they learned where real strength comes from. Marie glanced at the mountain of paperwork on her desk. Let me think about it. He gave her a respectful nod and left. In the days that followed, the tribute wall took shape. A framed reconstruction of the Midas emblem hung centered above a small plaque, engraved simply. To those who served silently, your legacy endures. No names, no fanfare, just reverence. Soldiers visited throughout the day. Some left patches from their own units. Others touched the wall in silence. And Marie, as always, watched quietly from her usual desk. She never posed, never boasted, but her eyes followed every hand, every gesture. Even the young lieutenant, the one who once mocked her, walked past her with straight shoulders and a quiet nod.
He didn't speak.
He didn't need to. One afternoon, Private Hernandez returned again. This time, he carried something wrapped in cloth. My grandfather served in the medical corps, he said. Same era. He passed recently. We found this among his things. He unwrapped it, an old field medic badge, dulled by time. He said it should go to someone who would understand. Marie took it gently, running her fingers over the metal. I do, she said. I'd like you to have it, if that's all right. She nodded. I'll keep it safe. He paused, then added, he used to say, the best soldiers weren't the loud ones. They were the ones still working, even after the story ended. Marie smiled, quietly. He was right. And as the depot lights dimmed again that evening, her footsteps echoed softly across the concrete. Not seeking legacy, but living it. Through his things we found this. He unwrapped the cloth to reveal a metal field compass, scratched, weathered, but intact. The initials MR were faintly etched on the underside. Marie froze. Her breath caught, and for a moment, the years collapsed around her. Her fingers reached forward, trembling slightly, and lifted the compass to the light. This was mine, she whispered. I gave it to someone on a medevac run. I thought it was lost. Hernandez nodded gently. He kept it all his life. Said it belonged to the person who got him out when he thought he wouldn't make it. Her fingers closed slowly around the compass, reverently. Thank you. He stepped back, silently giving her space. That night, Marie stayed later than usual. She sat in the depot's back office, the desk lamp casting a warm, quiet circle of light as she wrote a letter. It was addressed to Command Archives. In the letter, she listed names she remembered from Task Force Midas.
Dates.
Locations. Mission code names. She requested privacy protections for surviving families. No ceremonies, no public records, just dignity. The weight of memory pressed on her shoulders. But for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel like something she had to carry alone. Weeks passed. The base returned to its usual rhythms. But something had shifted. Her name started appearing on shift schedules, not as an afterthought, but with authority. Officers consulted her on loadout formations, convoy logic, and transit windows. She was invited to speak at small briefings, not to tell war stories, but to share lessons. The kind that only someone who had lived through the consequences could know. During one logistics seminar, Marie stood before a room of young recruits, barely out of school, notebooks open, pens ready. She spoke plainly. A good operation doesn't begin with the first bullet. It begins with knowing how many boots fit into a crate, how long rations will last in desert heat, how far a vehicle can go on one tank of fuel. You don't get medals for that. But if you get it wrong, someone doesn't come home. They listened,
Not just out of respect.
but because they understood she was teaching them how to keep each other alive. Afterward, a cadet approached. Ma'am, do you think logistics is where someone can make a difference? She met his eyes. It's where every difference begins. One quiet morning, the base PA crackled overhead. All personnel attending morning assembly, please gather at the parade grounds. Marie, curious, joined the stream of soldiers moving across the compound. Rows formed swiftly, boots aligned in practiced rhythm. On the raised platform stood General Darnell. Before we begin today's rotation, he said, I'd like to recognize someone. Someone whose name may never appear in a history book, but whose work, sacrifice, and integrity have shaped the mission readiness of this base more than most will ever know. He turned. Sergeant Major Marie Renner, please step forward. A stunned hush rippled through the crowd. Heads turned. Some gasped softly. Marie stood still for a long moment before quietly making her way forward. She didn't smile. She didn't look around. But her eyes shimmered slightly in the sunlight. Darnell faced her. On behalf of those who served with you, those who unknowingly benefited from your precision, and those learning now because of your example, we thank you. Then he raised his hand in a crisp salute. And behind him, 1,000 soldiers followed. A sea of salutes under the morning sun. 1,000 boots still. 1,000 hands raised. 1,000 silent recognitions. Marie stood among them, not above, not below, just one of them. She returned the salute. Later, as the crowd dispersed, a few soldiers came to her quietly. Some offered thanks. Some asked about her unit. Others said nothing at all, just a nod or a hand on her shoulder. Marie didn't linger. She walked back to the depot, clipboard in hand, and resumed her work. But on the small window above her desk, someone had placed a laminated print of her old unit's emblem, framed with care. That evening, before heading out, Marie walked once more to the tribute wall. She stood there in silence, tracing the plaque with her fingers. Then, slowly, she reached into her vest and removed the compass. She held it a moment in her palm, then placed it gently on the narrow shelf beneath the plaque. She didn't need to keep it anymore. She turned, walked to the depot door, switched off the lights, and stepped into the cooling air. She never asked for recognition, never sought applause, never needed her name on a wall. But in the end, it found her. And for Marie Renner, that was enough. He turned back to Marie. Would you accept a formal citation?